It's Thursday, January 24th, Friday, January 25th. If you're on the East Coast or across the pond, and this, my friends, is Spaced Out Radio. Hope you had a great day and night. I am your host, Dave Scott, broadcasting to you live from the Great White North, on top of the mountains of central British Columbia, right here at SOR headquarters. We welcome you nightly on the SOR Radio Network, Deep Talk Radio, and Revolution Radio. If you want to take a listen to our archives, we have them free for you at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Just do me a favor, hit that subscribe button. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you. You can rock out to Bumblefoot. You can shop at our Spaced Out Radio store. Think how good you'd look in a t-shirt or a hoodie. And we have the SOR Newswire provided by Captain Shirk, and so much more. Tonight's show is brought to you by the YouTube channel Ensuho. Sebastian Martin brings high-quality messages to the masses. Head to our website, click on the Ensuho banner, and subscribe today. What happens when we come back from death? What did we see, or what do we recall from the other side? Is it heavenly, or something darker? Nancy Rynes is a spiritual explorer, making the path to a heaven-filled life clearer for seekers of the world over. Nancy is a leading voice for bringing heaven's wisdom into our lives on earth, developing our heart-centered intuition, and living a life of inspired creativity. Her latest book, Awakenings from the Light, dives into these and other topics, giving the reader concrete examples of how to make heaven's wisdom a very real part of life on earth. Then at the bottom of hour number 3, we have Olaf Phillips from Paranoia Magazine back for the SOR Newswire. For the first time on Spaced Out Radio, Nancy Rynes, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for taking your evening and spending it with us. Really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me on the show. I'm looking forward to it.
We're looking forward to getting some answers for you and from you tonight on the near-death experience and what that is like. So let's start with you, Nancy, because I always like to introduce our guest to our audience, especially if you're a first-time guest. How did you get started in this field of research?
Inadvertently. I wasn't in this field of research at all. I was actually a geological scientist and a technical writer, science writer in the geological sciences. I did a lot of work with satellites and, and those cool spy satellites and all that good stuff. Mostly looking for mineral deposits and, monitoring environmental hazards and things like that. But I didn't get into this. I mean, back then, I didn't believe in anything. I was a materialist, atheist. I didn't really believe in anything at all. Ghosts, Bigfoot, none of that stuff. If I couldn't measure it with my tape measure, it didn't exist. So what happened was I had a series of really life-changing events that happened about 5 years ago that brought me kicking and screaming almost into this field. And I say inadvertently because it wasn't anything that I had ever intended. I was involved in a really horrific bicycling accident when I lived in Colorado and was almost killed by a woman who was texting on her phone while she was driving. Didn't know she had hit me and ended up dragging me under her vehicle for quite a ways.
Oh, goodness.
Yeah, it was a really horrendous accident. And the first inkling that I had that reality was perhaps a little bit different than I thought it was during that accident itself, when I had what I don't know that there's an actual term for this, but I had what I call an experience of dual consciousness, where there was a very distinct part of my consciousness that was still in my body that was experiencing the accident, as it unfolded from within my body being, traumatized. And then there was a part of my consciousness or maybe a higher part of my consciousness, because it wasn't afraid at all, that was outside of the whole accident, watching the whole thing unfold. And it was a very bizarre experience to have both of these parts of myself, both of these parts of my consciousness existing at the same time in two very different locations, and getting a different view of what was happening, which that in and of itself really, it bothered me at first when I, after the accident, as I'm laying in the ER, I didn't know what to make of that, because they were very distinct views of the accident, from that part of me that was outside of my body. I was able to see things that the part of me in my body would not have been able to see or know or experience. So there was definitely a different viewpoint on what was happening. And nothing in my training as a scientist, now granted I wasn't a neurologist or a neuroscientist or anything, but nothing in my training as a scientist led me to believe that consciousness could exist outside of the body. That we were, what I learned is that, basically consciousness was produced by the brain. So therefore consciousness can't exist outside of the brain or the body. And so what I experienced shouldn't have been able to happen. And that was kind of the start of my journey down the rabbit hole. And from there, it over the next few days, it became, at first it became weirder, a little bit more strange, a little bit more edgy. And then, since then I've allowed it to change my life and taken me off into a new direction.
Did you ever think, going to university and studying the sciences, that you would end up on a path of now studying the near-death experience? I mean, the two are not supposed to correlate together.
No. I never would. Honestly, as a scientist back then, I would never have ever seen myself. I mean, I was an extreme introvert. I was the quintessential scientist. Didn't want to talk to anybody. I just wanted to do my work. leave me alone. let me look at maps and rocks and that kind of stuff. I would never have thought I'd be up. I give keynote speeches about this kind of stuff. I give talks to groups of hundreds of people. I do these radio programs. I do research. I help with research. I'm not a primary researcher, but I do help with research. And I do a lot of writing on this subject to really bring it home to the people, who haven't had these experiences. And no, I would never have thought, nothing prepared me to be able to do this. It's just so outside of what used to be my comfort zone that it's like I'm living a completely different life, and in a way I am. But it's good. It's a good shift for me.
Why start studying it though? Because I know you had this traumatic accident. You didn't die, but you had this traumatic accident that led you into a soul searching. And I can understand that. I think people who have had diseases like cancer or had that life-altering moment at that point can all understand how your paradigm immediately shifts. But to go from that to the near-death, how did you get there?
Well, actually, I did die. So 3 days later,
okay.
3 days after the accident, I was in surgery. I had such trauma to my spine during that accident. My spine was broke. Actually, I think I had nine vertebrae that were broken in multiple places. And so, and I had one vertebrae that was just completely broken apart. I mean, there was really not much left of it. And so I had to be brought into surgery to repair all of that so that I could walk again. It was dicey whether I'd be able to walk. And so I opted for, whatever I could find, whatever surgery they could offer me to help with that. So they scheduled surgery for 3 days later. And I went into surgery and they gave me the anesthesia, and they gave me, an anesthesia that I had before. And so they knew, or at least they thought they knew, that it would be acceptable to my system. And they gave me an amnesiac, which is it's an amnesia drug. And that's pretty standard with surgery. And, they give you a couple other things like anti-nausal and whatever. But they gave this to me IV, and from what I understood later from my doctor and from the nurses that were there, my heart stopped and my breathing stopped and my blood pressure went to zero for about a minute and a half. And so clinically, I was starting the death process. And that wasn't really what I didn't experience that part of it. What I immediately saw for myself is that I was no longer in the OR. I had been completely conscious and awake when they had wheeled me into the OR. And the next thing I knew, I was waking up like in an outdoor location, standing up, which in and of itself was pretty bizarre because I shouldn't be able to stand up, knowing what I knew about my body. But I had the remembering. I knew that my body was on the operating table. I knew that. I remembered that I was in surgery. I remembered that I had been in an accident, that I was being worked on the operating table. But as I looked around, I was in this incredible place, indescribable energy flowing through everything. And, an experience of feeling at complete peace, completely accepted. It's very, very difficult to put this into English, so kind of bear with me if you can, because
No worries.
what I experienced was like I was accepted no matter what. And I was loved no matter what. And that's when I began to wonder, I wonder if I died on the operating table, because this isn't normal. This isn't normal for surgery. This isn't what you're supposed to do, when you go into surgery. Anesthesia doesn't allow this kind of thing to happen. And I began to wonder if I died. And then as soon as I did wonder, I just wondered it internally. It wasn't like I voiced it out loud. But I wondered, wow, I wonder if I died. I wonder if I was in this weird, some kind of an odd state of, right after death. And there was an answer, and the answer was that kind of came from all around me all at the same time. The answer was, this is your home. Welcome home. You're a part of this. This is where you belong. And immediately I knew it was the truth. Except I wasn't quite off the hook yet. So that was just the start of, for me, if I were to put it into human terms, what seemed like a couple of months worth of time there, even though at the very most it was the time I was in surgery, which was 2 hours.
Right.
And so, go ahead.
Do you go through some sort of confusion when that happens? Were you confused about where you were, how you were seeing this?
I was at first. I really didn't know what to make of this, because as a kid, I was raised in the Catholic faith, and I knew enough about Christianity to know that some people believe that there was some kind of a life after death, but I didn't know nobody was able to ever tell me what that looked like. And so I didn't know what this was. I didn't know if it was just mere, I really at first thought I was hallucinating. And I remember thinking to myself as I'm in this state, well, I guess if I'm hallucinating, this isn't a bad hallucination to have. It's kind of pretty, it's beautiful mountains and stuff. But and then once I realized, I had heard the voice and realized that this felt real, and we can talk about the realness, as we get into it a little bit more. But once I had the internal knowing and remembering that this was a real state, I did wonder where this particular place fit kind of on the scale of, between physical life and, whatever spiritual life existed. Eventually that was explained to me a little bit more, as it was effectively the first kind of stage of being after a human, or after we first die, and our essence or consciousness or soul, whatever you want to call that, kind of begins to leave the body. It's not really a physical place, it's really an energetic state, is how it was described to me. But it's an in-between energetic state where I found myself, because my body wasn't fully dead. I wasn't fully released, from the physical attachment yet. So I wasn't completely all the way in the spiritual realm at that point. It was an in-between place where a lot of people spend some time. Again, time is immaterial. It doesn't exist in that state like it does here. But it's a state of being where we're allowed to kind of consider what happened in our earthly life, to process all of that, and then to let go of it and unattach ourselves from, the physical life on earth. Not to forget about it, but really to just unattach so that we can move on. Otherwise we stay stuck, we stay attached to the physical. And so for me, it was an in-between. A lot of people do call it the in-between who have had these experiences. And it seems to equate in different religions to different things. I've heard some of my Buddhist friends call it the bardo, and some of my still Catholic friends call it purgatory. So there are different terms for this in-between place. I think, in-between is kind of a good descriptor for it. But it is a state where seemingly we're allowed to process what we just experienced on Earth as humans.
When you were going through this and you were trying to figure out that comfortability, because it seemed odd yet familiar at the same time, I'm going to assume.
Yeah.
Did you want to return? Did you know where you were and figured, I want to stay here rather than head on back to that beat up body that's in surgery?
Yeah. The only reason I wanted to come back was for my daughter. That was really the only reason I wanted to come back. The biggest part of me wanted to stay there, and exactly for the reason that you described. I was terrified to go back and come back into a body that could potentially be paralyzed, or I could have even been a quadriplegic just from the neck injuries that I had. But there was certainly, even in surgery, danger that I would come back and be a paraplegic because of the extent of damage to my spine. And so that bothered me. And the other reason that I wanted to stay was, well, besides the fact that it was incredibly beautiful and an incredibly loving, love-filled place, I knew that some of my loved ones had already predeceased me, and I wanted to see if I could find them. I wanted to meet up with my dad again, and my sister who had predeceased me, and some family friends, just people that I missed here on Earth, and I wanted to be with them again, and to experience that existence with them, if at all possible. It was hard. That was the hard thing for me to consider, was coming back. I really struggled with that. Several times, I hate to say it, but I kind of threw a little bit of a temper tantrum at times when I was thinking of, or when I was being asked to come back. I didn't toward the end, I didn't want to come back here at all. I knew my daughter would be okay. I had that knowing. I was told that she would be fine. So I thought, well, why can't I just stay then? But what I was told is that, you've chosen this, and B, you've got a job to do. So we're going to send you back to do your job.
We got about just under 2 minutes left before we got to go to break at the bottom of the hour. In regards, that actually tips off to my next question, in regards to what whoever they told you, whether it was angels or God himself or whomever it may be, did they tell you that you had to come back, or did they tell you it was your choice whether or not you wanted to stay or not?
The thing is that I had already made the choice before I was born that I would come back. So they were holding me. They are my spiritual guides, so spiritual teachers. I had some spiritual teachers while I was there. I don't call them angels. I just call them teachers. But they were spiritual beings who were teachers that were basically holding me to my promise, or holding me to my agreement that I would go back. So the choice was one that I had already made before I was born.
Mm-hmm. All right. So with that choice that they said this was on your path from childhood, pre-childhood, where you made that decision, are you saying that there was some sort of, in about 30 seconds here, are you saying that there was some sort of like contract where they laid out your life in front of you and they said to you, no, you got to go back. You don't really have a choice here?
It wasn't exactly like that. It was my decisions. Those were my things that I wanted to learn, things that I wanted to do. Yeah, so it was really me kind of planning out what I wanted to accomplish, what I wanted to try out, and then also the service that I wished to perform. So I wanted to be of service to my family and friends in this particular way, and that was in this way. And so that was my choice. I chose that. And it was basically my spiritual friends that were holding me to that.
Nancy, you hold on. We're going to take a break here at the bottom of the hour. Nancy Rynes is our guest tonight on Spaced Out Radio. Near-death experiences is what we're talking about. Have you had one? Stay tuned as we get into it more right after this on the Mighty SOR.
You're listening to Spaced Out Radio Live with Dave Scott on the Deep Talk Radio Network.
So, you love talk radio? Then you'll love TalkStreamLive.com. TalkStream Live is always on, 24/7, with the best streaming talk shows. Find your favorite talkers and discover some new ones. It's free, readily available online or on mobile with any smartphone or tablet. Finding your favorite talk shows all in one place has gotten a whole lot easier. Just go to TalkStreamLive.com. Be sure to download the free apps from Google Play or the iTunes App Store.
Are you tired of being blocked, shadow banned, or placed in jail for simply posting your thoughts on social media? Social Media Freedom can take care of that for you. Social Media Freedom is the newest and one of the best free new apps that allows you the freedom to post what you want, when you want. It takes seconds to download from your app store. Come join the tribe at Social Media Freedom. It's time to set yourself free.
A timepiece is a reflection of who you are, and what better way to show off the real you than with an Escape watch? Escape is a lifestyle brand accessorizing your days and nights. Choose to escape and create the life of discovery that you deserve. Dream, play, unite with your own personalized Escape watch. Head to escapewatches.com. There is no time like the present to enjoy your escape. Use promo code SMF2017 for your 20% discount today.
Looking for a place to advertise at a very reasonable cost? Look no further than Spaced Out Radio. SpacedOutRadio.com has an advertising tab that you can click to check out our daily, weekly, and monthly packages to play on the radio, or our website including social media. From commercial spots to banners, we have it all. Check out our competitive pricing today.
Hello, this is your guitar man, Ron Bumblefoot THAL, and I have to tell you, I love the response I get for Little Brother is Watching from Spaced Out Radio fans. It's amazing how music can inspire and make people think deeper about what's going on in the supernatural world. You can head over to my website, bumblefoot.com, to check out my music, my guitar workshops, my touring, even check out some of the hot sauces that I'm working on. And make sure you keep on listening, because with Spaced Out Radio, you know Little Brother is watching.
Visit purpleplates.com today. For over 40 years, the Purple Energy Plates have been delivering amazing results for their many customers. Inspired by the great genius Nikola Tesla, the harmony, healing, and energetic effects of the plates have proven over and over to be beneficial and often miraculous to thousands of customers. Check their site for daily specials and choose from their many energy products. You won't be sorry. Visit them today at purpleplates.com.
You know, it's hard being the bad man of ufology, but that's just the way that I like it. This is Chris George Zuger, and I'll be hanging out with Dave Scott and SOR scientist Chris Cogswell for Reality Paranormal, the second Wednesday of every month. And our job is to break it down and come to conclusions as to what is really going on in the supernatural world. I'd love for you to join us right here on Spaced Out Radio.
Heading to Vancouver and looking for a night on the town? The Moose Vancouver is the bar that never stops rocking until 2 a.m. every night. The Moose has great food with everything on the menu from $6.95 to $8.95. Fantastic, vibrant staff and rock and roll that will bring you back to when the music was real, the hair was long, and the guitars were rocking. Get your party on at the Moose Vancouver, the official party bar of Spaced Out Radio.
Hi there, this is Geraldine Orozco from San Francisco's Bay Area Meditation. I invite you to join me the first Tuesday of every month with Dave Scott for Spaced Out Radio's The Spiritual You. In this fast-paced world we live in, it's time for you to take some time for you. We'll cover every possible subject from powerful meditation to healing techniques to your own intuition and spirituality. So come join us for The Spiritual You.
We're bringing scientific thought to the paranormal. Hi there, this is Spaced Out Radio scientist Chris Cogswell. Join me, Chris Zuger, and Dave Scott the second Wednesday of every month, where we break down the who from the woo when it comes to everything paranormal. We'll investigate and try to bring sensible answers to those straight and sometimes outlandish questions people have. Hey, not everything has an answer, but we'll do our best. Listen in to Reality Paranormal only on Spaced Out Radio.
Did you know Spaced Out Radio runs 7 days a week? Hi there, this is Tessa Nicole Thomas, and I'm here to take you on a paranormal journey each Saturday and Sunday night. Why change the station when you have it all right here? Together, we'll hang out and share some strange and scary stories. And don't forget, we have Psychic Sundays as well, so come tune in Spaced Out Weekend. We get going at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern, only at spacedoutradio.com, where we own the night. Coming soon to our website, spacedoutradio.com, is the SOR Space Travelers Club. For just $5 a month, you can get into a private area on our site where you can hang with other listeners in our chat room, post in our forum, and check out a bunch of exclusive content and store that won't be found anywhere else, including a nightly after-show party with Dave. It's going to be the best $5 a month you're going to spend. The SOR Space Travelers, only at spacedoutradio.com.
You hear footsteps in the empty room above you. A rocking chair begins rocking by itself. Don't be afraid of the things that go bump in the night. Reach for Spirit Storybox, the iPhone app the Huffington Post UK called the only ghost hunting app you will ever need. Spirit Storybox. The spirits are telling their stories. Are you listening?
Are you intrigued by Paranormal Talk Radio? You'll love the new Paranormal Radio app from TalkStream Live. You'll find a great selection of talk shows covering UFOs, ghosts, strange phenomena, and much more. Download the Paranormal Radio app now and start listening to the very best in paranormal talk entertainment, including the network you're listening to right now. The Paranormal Radio app, free in Google Play and the iOS App Store.
Welcome back to the second half hour of Spaced Out Radio tonight. I am Dave Scott, sitting in the captain's chair of SOR headquarters. Tonight we are talking near-death experiences. Nancy Rynes is our guest tonight, a former scientist who now looks into what causes near-death experiences and what are they all about. Are they enlightening? Are they torture? Are they real? Or are they the mind playing tricks on us? Nancy, welcome back to Spaced Out Radio.
Thank you. Good to be back.
Now, right before the break, you were explaining what happened to you. When you came back into your body and you knew you were coming back and you started the healing process, whether you were laying in bed on those lonely nights in the hospital or at home, I'm sure there was a lot of tear-felt and tear-dripping days where you just felt like you just couldn't do this anymore, and why did you survive? Almost that survivor's guilt. Did you look at this situation as a scientist and question whether or not your entire reality had changed?
Yeah, actually I did. The coming back was hard, but the funny thing was, I'll just put it out there for folks, that my body healed very quickly, like freaky quickly. So I was out of all my casts within 4.5 weeks, which was astounding. So I didn't have a lot of physical trauma that was long-standing. It was more of what I dealt with was exactly that emotional and mental changes that I dealt with. The first thing I thought when I came back was, wow, I must be totally nuts. I'm not going to tell anybody what happened because that was really weird. And so I didn't for about, I kept that vow for about 24 hours until the chaplain walked in. And, speaking to her, she's like, yeah, we see this stuff all the time. This is normal. It's a normal part of the death process. It's called a near-death experience. It happens all the time. And that helped, but I still struggled with it for, weeks and weeks and weeks as to what had just happened. But the interesting thing was that even right away, something about it had changed something in me. And what I mean by that is when I came back, I was at complete peace. Even though I was mentally, struggling with what had just happened, there was a feeling and an embodiment of peace and calm and joy in my being. My friends noticed it, and in fact, several of them came to visit me in the hospital, and they'd walk away shaking their heads, like, "What in the world was going on with this chick?" But they told me later, they said, you were just glowing. It was like you were joy on earth, just laying there in that hospital bed. And that has never left me in the 5 years since. So that changed for me immediately. There was something about being in that realm that just made that particular shift right away, even though intellectually I was still trying to process it. There was a peace and a joy that came with it that was immediate. But it took, it took me probably a good 18 months, I would say, to mentally come to terms with what happened. And what really clinched it for me and allowed me to really dive into it, know that it was, I heard that it was real. I heard it from other people that it was real, but I didn't feel it inside really fully for about 18 months. What happened in that, toward the end of that 18 months is I spoke with a couple of physicians. One of them had been my physician during all of this. And I had a heart-to-heart with him. I'm like, you know what? You're going to think I'm a total lunatic, but this is what happened during surgery. This is what I experienced. He said, well, you know, you did die on the operating table. We know that. And then he said, I see this all the time as a doctor, and I know that it's real. I know that our consciousness is not produced by our brain, that it's here for a short time and then it leaves. And he said, I see this several times every month because he worked in the hospital a lot on pretty traumatic cases. And, you know, he said, yeah, it happens. I see it all the time. In fact, he had just like the week or so before my surgery had been attending one of his elderly patients who was in the process of dying in the hospital, and saw some really incredible stuff happen with her and her family that everybody in the room experienced. So when he was a Harvard-trained internal medicine doc with a couple of extra, degrees thrown on top of it. When he validated what it was that I experienced as being real, then I started to allow myself to believe it was real. It took someone of a scientific background to be able to kind of break through that for me, help me break through it. The other thing that I had, I didn't realize I was carrying around. I was carrying around extreme anger at being sent back. I was still pissed off that I was sent back, even though it had been a choice. I was just angry because it wasn't that my life was bad. It wasn't bad. I was not struggling, with my physical abilities or anything like that. I was just looking at the world around me thinking, why are people suffering so much? This is a hard place to be, just to look at people suffering. And so that's why I was angry at being sent back, just to watch all of this perceived suffering around me. But it took those two instances really for me to latch on to this as, wow, that was real, and then beginning to dive into not only the spiritual aspects of it, but also more of the scientific aspects of it, and talking with other physicians. And there are a lot of them that will talk about this stuff if you just talk to them in the right way and say, look, we're not going to go on tape. You can talk about this off the record, but it's a lot of physicians want to talk about this and don't feel like it's an accepted enough phenomena. It's an accepted enough thing to talk about. They feel like they would be ostracized if they began to bring up things that happened with their patients that kind of broke through the bounds of what we understand about consciousness. But there are some great researchers that I've talked to as well who are doing cutting-edge research on not only the near-death experience, but also spirituality and consciousness and how all of this fits into the greater view of the universe. And they're fascinating to speak with. And speaking with people like this has really helped me to kind of cement all of this into my own viewpoint on not only on my life, but also on my spirituality, my spiritual life, and then the reality of this universe. Not just this planet, but the universe. But it took a lot of work. It took a lot of deep diving and a lot of meditation and soul searching to get there.
Mm-hmm. Did you question your education, your background, your colleagues, your own beliefs? Because, I mean, you grew up Catholic, you went into the scientific realm in education, but now you are struggling between this battle between Catholicism and the sciences once again.
Yeah, for me, it wasn't really a battle between Catholicism, because I am at this point after a year and a half after my accident, not really going back to that faith. But I'm certainly at that point, certainly very spiritual, but I wouldn't consider myself Catholic. But I really struggled with the gap that there exists between all of the different religions, not just Catholicism, but spirituality in general, the religions in general, and science. And that I knew that the gap doesn't need to be there, that scientists are missing out or turning their backs on a really, at least in like the consciousness studies, they're at least they have been turning their backs on what could be a very interesting bridge between, the sciences and what, humans have termed spirituality for however many thousands of years. But I understand how it evolved. It used to not be this way. So back, during even the time of Isaac Newton, as far as, even later than that, the sciences and spiritualities were they weren't necessarily, easy bedfellows, but they certainly existed in the same household. And scientists back then weren't afraid to talk about spiritual topics, and spiritual people weren't afraid to talk about science. But then for a long time, and I'm not exactly sure when it started, but it's certainly started by about the mid-1800s or so, they separated. And they separated, I believe, for a reason. The scientists really wanted things that were provable, and repeatable. That's the whole basis of the current model of scientific thinking. So science isn't really, ideally, it shouldn't be a dogma. Science is really a set of tools in order to understand the universe. That's really all it's supposed to be. It's just a set of analytical tools that allow for repeatable observations of what's going on. And that's the whole key. They wanted things to be measurable and repeatable. So there was a time at which scientists realized, well, shoot, it's pretty hard to measure anything spiritual, so we're just not going to go there anymore.
Right.
That we're going to leave that for the religious folks to deal with. Kind of hard to measure how much a soul weighs, or how long a soul is, or does God exist? I can't get out my tape measure and measure God. So there needed to be, I truly believe that the separation needed to happen.
I don't think anybody's really arguing that point.
Yeah.
But, I'll be honest with you. One of our listeners, Joe, in the chat room, he was a geologist, had a back injury where he was in a motorcycle accident, had a near-death experience, almost similar stories and backgrounds such as you. He had that. He's explained it on this show before about what happened. And, coming from a scientific background, it's made him question things too.
Yeah. Yeah, I think we do our scientists a disservice these days by not training them more in any of these. I mean, not only the edges of consciousness, but also just spirituality in general. And we also put them in a position of, I think, in kind of a tough position where if they do want to explore these types of things, or even explore things such as like Dr. Dean Radin likes to research, paranormal type of phenomena, remote viewing, psychic phenomena, we're disallowing them from doing that, which is crazy. That to me is absolutely crazy. The true science investigates that stuff. We're supposed to question and investigate and ask, what the heck is that all about? Let's figure that out. But we ostracize scientists like that who are curious, who are open-minded. I mean, even people who research, cryptozoology are ostracized by mainstream scientists, or people who delve into potential different histories, or I don't know what it's called, but different, like the different views of history, like perhaps the Sphinx was built 10,000 years earlier than we thought it was. We don't allow for that right now in the sciences, which is really distressing, that we can't allow scientists to really be fully curious and to investigate things that are outside of the mainstream. And who decides the mainstream anyway? Well, it's usually funding organizations that decide what the mainstream is. So scientists like Dean Radin and even Sam Parnia, who's a physician, he's actually, I believe, with Cornell University in New York, who's studying consciousness, and he's one of the primary near-death experience researchers. They have trouble getting funding. They shouldn't have trouble getting funding. They're being real scientists. They're being curious.
Absolutely.
They're trying to figure out what's going on. And it's sad.
There are a number of doctors now coming out who, and I think of Dr. Scott Kolbaba, who's been on this show, who are coming out talking about these near-death experiences and trying to get the medical community to take a more open mind about this experience, because they are happening. I mean, these are smart people who are in, operating rooms dealing with people who they know are clinically dead. Yeah. And they are coming back to life with these amazing experiences. And it should be impossible, yet here it is happening. And Dr. Kolbaba on this show said that more and more physicians on a monthly basis are starting to see this phenomena coming forward. Do you think it's because that as people get closer to either A, their own death, or B, the younger generation that is coming up seems to be a lot more open-minded to the experience, that may be the two reasons why people are starting to take this a little bit more seriously these days?
I think so. I think it's probably more the latter. In fact, there's a quip in the sciences that we say that scientific progress is made one funeral at a time. And it's so true, because basically in the sciences, and I hate to admit this, but there are a lot of scientists who, as they get older, their beliefs, and they are beliefs, they're not facts, but their belief system about the way the universe works, or, the way their particular science works, gets set in stone. And nothing is going to, change their minds about what it is that they think they see. And so in the sciences, we say, well, those folks have to die before the whole science itself can evolve, because we need to get those viewpoints out of the way. And I think that's what's happening. My physician was a younger guy, and, Harvard trained, which Harvard University is doing a great job of teaching some of the newer medical sciences that are kind of becoming popular. So integrative medicine, they're starting to teach, they're not teaching their doctors energy medicine, but at least they're teaching their doctors about things like acupuncture and energy medicine and their efficacy. So the doctors are coming out of institutions these days like Harvard, right, with bigger knowledge of these different modalities for healing people, which is awesome. So it's folks like that, the younger doctors, the younger researchers, I believe, who are going to be the ones at the forefront of bringing, these new ideas up for consideration and who are going to make it easy for doctors to talk about this stuff, because that's been the problem up until now, is doctors fear for their careers if they talk about this stuff. They're just afraid.
But that is changing. Yeah,
it is. It is.
That is changing. I mean, as that old guard, retires or unfortunately dies off, that's where we're starting to see a lot of these situations change as we head into the final minute before we go to break here.
Yeah, and that's, to me, heartening. I wish it didn't need to progress the way it is, but at least it is. And the more that happens, the more the research opens up, which is also good. And then the more people like me or you or anyone else out there who have had these experiences, we are now feeling that we can talk about that, because, we feel like we're nuts at first when we start to talk about this with a doctor who wants to not believe it at all. So the more conversation about this, the better, in my opinion. I think that's what we need. We need to feel safe to talk about it from all sides.
For sure. And let's get into that when we come back in the next hour of Spaced Out Radio, hour 2, right around the corner here, as we have as our guest tonight, Nancy Rynes. Her website is nancyrynes.com. Rynes spelled R-Y-N-E-S. I almost pronounced it Nyers there. Nancy Rynes, nancyrynes.com. We're talking the near-death experience right here on the mighty SOR.
Every night on Spaced Out Radio, we have places for you to hang out. Hi, this is Carl. Join our SOR Space Travelers group on Facebook for live chat. On Twitter, using hashtag Spaced Out Radio. You can also join us in our Spreaker chat room. Check us out on Instagram at Dave Scott SOR. All of our archives are free on YouTube at Spaced Out Radio. By the way, I'll be watching you at your window until you do. Bye!
Looking for the stories of the strange and weird that you will find hard to find anywhere else? Check out the SOR Newswire on our website. Our writers, led by Captain Shirk, are scouring the world for the oddest and most bizarre stories we can find. Everything from weird crime to suspenseful and paranormal. We're working hard for you to bring you the most intriguing news of your day. Check out the SOR Newswire at spacedoutradio.com today.
You're listening to Spaced Out Radio Live with Dave Scott on the Deep Talk Radio Network.
We are getting ready to relaunch the SOR Space Travelers Club at spacedoutradio.com. For $5 a month, you can join us for a plethora of features found nowhere else. Hang out in a private chat room during the show and after party. You can check out some exclusive content and a store specifically for you, as well as a private listener forum where you can post your thoughts, stories, and pictures. The SOR Space Travelers Club, coming soon to spacedoutradio.com.
So, you love talk radio? Then you'll love TalkStreamLive.com. TalkStream Live is always on, 24/7, with the best streaming talk shows. Find your favorite talkers and discover some new ones. It's free, readily available online or on mobile with any smartphone or tablet. Finding your favorite talk shows all in one place has gotten a whole lot easier. Just go to TalkStreamLive.com. Be sure to download the free apps from Google Play or the iTunes App Store.
Do you want to know what's really going on in your world? Do you have questions about who you can trust in the mainstream media? Then look no further than the Rebel Planet. Come get the straight answers right here at spacedoutradio.com. Join me, Jamie Sexton, creator of Rebel Planet News, as I fill you in on the stories behind the stories. All you truth seekers, be sure to tune in to Rebel Planet on spacedoutradio.com the third Thursday of every month.
Visit purpleplates.com today. For over 40 years, the Purple Energy Plates have been delivering amazing results for their many customers. Inspired by the great genius Nikola Tesla, the harmony, healing, and energetic effects of the plates have proven over and over to be beneficial and often miraculous to thousands of customers. Check their site for daily specials and choose from their many energy products. You won't be sorry. Visit them today at purpleplates.com.
Looking for a place to advertise at a very reasonable cost? Look no further than Spaced Out Radio. SpacedOutRadio.com has an advertising tab that you can click to check out our daily, weekly, and monthly packages to play on the radio, or our website including social media. From commercial spots to banners, we have it all. Check out our competitive pricing today.
Get your horns up with me on Spaced Out Radio. This is Ron Bumblefoot THAL. Come tune in to SOR where you can hear me rock out with Little Brother Is Watching, the official theme song of Spaced Out Radio. And then come on over to bumblefoot.com where you can find out about my tour schedule, my music, and everything else. Bumblefoot.com keeps you up to date on what I'm doing and the best way to stay in touch with my music and music camps. Sign up for my newsletter at bumblefoot.com and remember, Little Brother Is Watching.
You know, it's hard being the bad man of ufology, but that's just the way that I like it. This is Chris George Zuger, and I'll be hanging out with Dave Scott and SOR scientist Chris Cogswell for Reality Paranormal, the second Wednesday of every month. And our job is to break it down and come to conclusions as to what is really going on in the supernatural world. I'd love for you to join us right here on Spaced Out Radio.
Find your escape where time has no limits. It's about living today and cherishing the heritage of yesterday. A spirit of adventure for what is new, with the nostalgia of the past. Your timepiece is a reflection of who you are. Life surrounded by beauty from the world around us to the soul within. EscapeWatches.com. There is no time like the present to enjoy your escape. Use promo code SMF2017 for your 20% discount today.
You hear footsteps in the empty room above you. A rocking chair begins rocking by itself. Don't be afraid of the things that go bump in the night. Reach for Spirit Storybox, the iPhone app the Huffington Post UK called the only ghost hunting app you will ever need. Spirit Storybox. The spirits are telling their stories. Are you listening?
On the first Tuesday of every month, I encourage you to come along for a journey with me, Geraldine Orozco, on The Spiritual You. Together, we will take a look at how to access the highest expression of yourself and change your life. Consciousness, ET contact, health, and wellness, we can talk about it all. So come along for a spiritual ride with me, Geraldine Orozco, on The Spiritual You, only on Spaced Out Radio.
The freedom to post what you want, when you want. That's the social media freedom you need. Social Media Freedom is the free app in your app store. No need to worry about going to jail or being shadow banned any longer. It's the freedom to say what you feel. The freedom to know Big Brother isn't watching. It's the way social media is supposed to be. Social Media Freedom. It's time to set yourself free. Download from your app store today. The Call of the Wild is in Vancouver. The Moose Vancouver is one of the hottest bars and restaurants in the city. Open until 2 a.m. nightly, the Moose will rock you like a hurricane all night long. Great food with everything on the menu at $6.95 near the corner of Nelson and Granville. Get your horns up and come rock with us. The Moose Vancouver, the official rocking bar of Spaced Out Radio.
Hey, this is Canadian Paranormal Investigator Mike Moore. The third Wednesday of every month, I'll be teaming up with Dave Scott to bring you Ghosts of the Great White North. Each month, we will bring on guests from across Canada to discuss their ghostly encounters. Canada is a paranormal hotbed with stories you've never heard, so we're going to bring them to you. So get comfy on your Chesterfield, grab a donut, and join us, eh?
You're listening to Spaced Out Radio with Dave Scott. Follow Dave on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on Facebook, Spaced Out Radio Show.
Welcome back to hour number 2 of Spaced Out Radio tonight. I am your host, Dave Scott. Thank you so much for being with us. Tomorrow night on the program, it's the SOR Paranormal Roundtable, final Friday of the month, which means I bring in some friends. We have some fun discussing the month that was. We get going at 9:06 Pacific, 12:06 a.m. Eastern at spacedoutradio.com. Hi to everyone listening in on the SOR Radio Network, on Deep Talk Radio, along with Revolution Radio. Good to have you with us tonight. Also, you can check out all of our archives for free. All you got to do is go to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Just do old Davey the favor and hit that subscribe button. The Desert Clam has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Yogi Bogey Box. Yogi Bogey Box is your password. What it means, nobody really knows, but the Clam sets the password each and every night right here on the mighty SOR. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you. You can rock out to Bumblefoot. You can go shopping right now at our Spaced Out Radio store. You'd look good in one of our T-shirts. And, of course, you can always read up on the SOR Newswire provided by Captain Shirk and so much more. Tonight we are talking the near-death experience. Nancy Rynes is our guest tonight. Rynes spelled R-Y-N-E-S. If you want to check out our website, I highly suggest you do. Nancy, thank you so much for talking about this subject tonight. Welcome back.
Thanks for having me back.
You mentioned something during the break that I found interesting. You're actually enjoying talking about the scientific side of the near-death experience, because a lot of interviews that you do, as you stated, always want to talk about the religious aspect, the feeling of it, what went on. Why do you think it's more important right now to be focusing on the scientific aspect of everything?
Well, for me personally, one of the things that I wanted to accomplish when I came back was to be a bridge. And I knew it was to be a bridge between the sciences as much as I could and those people who were spiritually minded, whatever religion they were. And so that's part of my calling, is to be a bridge. I mean, I've been that bridge, and even before all this happened, I was a science writer for a long time, which meant that what I did was to take scientific concepts, whatever they were, and make them more understandable to a more general audience. That's just what my career was all about. And so when I came back from all of this, I have been feeling like I want to make some of those connections across that gap, that has been existing between the sciences and not necessarily just spirituality, not just religion, but some of these other topics that we alluded to before the break. Why do we have to have all these divisions? So that was one of the things that I wanted to do, was to help bridge those gaps. The other thing too is I have a different perspective now. We don't have to have these disparate camps. We don't have to have the little camp of the scientists who don't want to talk with the little camp of, people who believe in some form of spirituality or religion. We don't have to have a separate little camp of people who are, I don't even know what you want to call them now, fringe researchers. I don't think that's a good terminology, a good term for them, but those scientists like we alluded to before, Dean Radin, Dr. Sam Parnia, Kenneth Ring, who are doing different kinds of research than is widely accepted. We don't need to have all of these divisions. In the technology sector, they call it stovepipes. They call all these little different camps a stovepiping kind of methodology of approaching a system. And we have that now. But we don't need to. We're all more similar than we are different. The problem that we have really is in, there's probably a lot more problems than just what I see, but some of the main ones are the funding is an issue. And people are afraid of losing funding. So there's a lot of fear involved. If if I'm a researcher, let's say I'm an archaeologist, a mainstream archaeologist, and I'm really thinking, this site is a lot older than what's accepted in mainstream archaeology. I might not be allowed to say that kind of stuff out loud. That bothers me. It bothers me that I'm afraid now of my funding source if I say that stuff out loud. If I want to work with researchers who are studying that kind of thing. But I think that is also changing, as we talked about before. And in fact, it's changed very rapidly here in the United States in the last year, especially in terms of archaeology. Now, I was a geologist, but I had a minor in archaeology. So the archaeology is kind of my history and archaeology are my second loves in the sciences, even though some people don't think they're science. But so in the last year, it's been very heartening to me because when I was a grad student in geology and studying archaeology as well, the archaeologists that I studied under were sure that humans hadn't been to this hemisphere, North America, before 10,000 years ago. It was absolutely impossible for there to be, a pre-Clovis culture here on this continent. And I always thought that was hogwash. I couldn't prove it, but I always thought it was hogwash. And there were a lot of graduate students along with me who thought it was hogwash. Well, now those graduate students are finding evidence to support that. In fact, in Texas, I think it was last spring or summer, there was a site that was found that pushes back, habitation here in Texas, at least. I think it was to 18,000 years ago. So we have to break down these walls that exist in order for us as a species to come together and evolve as a species intellectually, emotionally, and, spiritually, religiously as well. But we can't exist separate. We can't afford to exist in separate camps anymore. We just can't.
That's a pretty brave statement to make against an entire community of scientists.
It is. But we can't afford it. I think scientists are beginning to understand this now. They're the only way forward really is for them to come out of the scientific closet, to make their research more popular, to make it more widely known, to bring in, more of the regular people out there into their field of study. But in order to do that, we as, citizens would like to see them actually be open-minded scientists. I'm seeing it. But in order for us, that's just what I believe as someone taking a step back from this human society for a little bit. We can't exist very, very well if we're kind of warring, not really fully warring, but if we're at each other's throats within these little camps. We just can't. We can't progress as a species that way. We definitely need to come together, and intolerance maybe at first, just tolerate each other, respect that people have different viewpoints. That's going to be probably the first step, to just be tolerant, to be respectful, to listen, to try to understand, and to try to help other people understand where you're coming from as well. I'm starting to see that. I'm very heartened by the way science in general is changing, and certainly the medical sciences specifically. And that does me good. I just love seeing that. But it's going to take time, and it's going to take continued dedication by both researchers and, regular people as well. To make all those changes really happen over the next several generations. It isn't going to be a quick a quick shift. I don't think. I think it's going to take at least a couple of generations.
I want to get to some questions from our audience here, if you don't
Sure.
mind, because we always like to include them in here. Eugene is asking, when you went through your experience, did you see or communicate with any other beings, and what did they look like?
Yeah, it's a great question. I did. I communicated with that kind of what I call the all-knowing one. You can call it God if you want. When I first got there, that being that welcomed me to this in-between place, between physical life and spiritual life, that being I did not see, I did hear. So that whoever that was that welcomed me there, I heard that. And then I was accompanied for a long time by, there was one particular, what I call just a spiritual being. She was a teacher who appeared to be in a general female form, who was, she took a form, as she told me later, that would be easy for me to relate to, that wouldn't be too scary, so that I could converse with her without feeling freaked out. But she was a womanly figure about 2 or 3 inches taller than me. She wasn't fully solid. I mean, she didn't look solid to me. She was very energetic. She kind of glowed with this kind of a glowing energy about her. Her features were indistinct. So while I could see in general that she had what looked like a face and had, hands and whatever, it wasn't really distinct. It was like she was a little bit fuzzy. And the glow that she had about her was kind of like a silvery, pearlescent kind of glow. She looked to be wearing kind of a silvery colored, not really a dress, but more like a short top. I'm not a fashionista, so I don't know all the terminology. But she had like what looked like a long skirt and maybe kind of a flowy blouse or something like that, and long, darkish hair that was kind of curly. Her skin was kind of a middle tone. She wasn't. I mean, it to my eyes didn't look like any particular race at all, like any particular ethnic group at all. It was like she was a mix of all of them, which I thought was kind of fascinating. But yeah, she was there. She was also accompanied in the background by what was at least probably 100 other of my spiritual friends or spiritual teachers, or I call them my spiritual friends because I don't think they were necessarily there to teach me. But they were kind of off in the distance, and they were communicating to me through her. So she was basically acting as an interpreter for them. So I would get her communication from her directly, but she would also relay messages or things that they wanted me to know from them. It was, as I was told later during that experience, if I were to have been confronted by 100 of these beings all at the same time, it would have been too overwhelming. So they chose to work through just one, and therefore made it a little bit easier for me to deal with them and to communicate, learn what I needed to know.
To be in that presence of such a higher entity, what is going through you at this time when this entity is communicating with you?
Depends on what she was saying.
Did you feel that guilt from, maybe like a lot of people say, when, every time you're a bad person, you lie, you steal, you cheat, or whatever it may be. Did you feel that type of guilt along with the happiness of love and joy that you were there?
There was a time when I did, and during what is often termed a life review, which I did have. I didn't know that it was that at the time because this was all new to me. I didn't know all this terminology. But I had an experience of what everybody calls a life review, where you're basically presented with different things that happen, during your physical life on Earth. You're not really asked to defend it, but I felt like I needed to defend it. So it was for her, she was presenting me with these memories and scenarios really for me to learn from them. So there were instances, for example, where I had said something to her. There was a time when I had said, this is not unusual for anybody out there that has siblings. You've done this too, where you said something to deliberately hurt a sibling just because that's how you were as a teenager. This was me. And I was presented with a time when I had said something to deliberately hurt one of my siblings. And I immediately felt so guilty for that. I felt so bad. But I felt even worse when part of the experience isn't just you as the human who's seeing what you've done. You don't just see what you've done. You also get to experience the feelings of the person that you've interacted with. So in that example, I was allowed, or I was given the opportunity to feel the feelings of my sister's hurt and almost feelings of betrayal when I said what I said to her, when I hurt her deliberately. I got to feel what she felt. And that was like the biggest wake-up call ever, because I could feel the hurt that I caused someone else deliberately. And it wasn't presented to me to be a punishment, to be anything other than a learning experience. And I tell you what, it's a huge learning experience when you're confronted with that. And I started to get really, I started to kind of beat myself up about it, like getting really down on myself about what I had done. I felt that bad about some of this stuff. And the woman that I was with, my spiritual teacher, kind of had to talk me down from that. She kept explaining, no, this isn't meant for you as a way for you to inflict injury on yourself. This is a way for you to learn how to love better, how to be a better human, how to extend love to your family and friends in a more effective way, and to be more conscious of your actions in every moment. And that's what it turned out to be for me. It was luckily I did come away learning from that rather than, feeling like I needed to beat myself up. But it's easy to go there. I did feel some incredible joy when, I got to experience some of the beauty that that comes after this life. But I also felt incredible joy when I was presented with the beauties of this life, of this physical life. So I had a kind of a bigger, almost like a planetary view of things that were going on here. And I could kind of tap into the joy. For example, when when a parent holds a newborn child, or even when you play with your dogs, I was able to feel that joy kind of on a grand scale and really experience it, not just from the standpoint of one person, but from the whole planet's joy in things like that. It's really tough to describe, but emotionally, the whole experience there was a bit of a roller coaster. So I would go from feeling guilty like that, for some of the things that I had done, to feelings of just such connection with other people, such joy at the opportunities we have, such gratitude for being able to come here into this physical life and live it, just even if it's for a short time. That's something I never would have thought I would have experienced before this. Like, I was borderline depressed most of my lifetime before it all happened. But to feel that gratitude of being here in a body, even if it's not perfect, that was part of that experience too.
Let's get to another question from Eugene here, as we got about 2.5 minutes before we got to go to break here at the bottom of the hour. He is asking, were there any lapses of consciousness during your NDE, or was it one single continuous stream of remembered events?
It was totally one single stream of remembered events. And in fact, as soon as I got back into my body, I asked for a pen and paper so I could start writing it down, because it was just so much information. It actually took me, I'm trying to think of how long it was, like 3 months of writing to write it all down. Because I wanted to write it all down while it was still fresh. While I didn't, I didn't want to forget any of it, because it was just all there. And the funny thing is, even during the accident itself, when I was being hit, those 3 days before the NDE, I remembered everything from there too, just like every microsecond of that. So it was one long chain of memory with no breaks. Kind of amazing, actually, if you think about it, but especially when you consider that I was given an amnesia drug with my anesthesia.
How do we know it wasn't the anesthesia that was causing some sort of brain chemical imbalance to cause this?
Well, that's a super question. And that was one of the things that I had asked too. I've asked that of many other researchers, because, it is a big question. So one of the things is that anesthesia is designed to make you completely unconscious so that you can't even dream. So it's not that it doesn't, obviously it doesn't kill your brain off, so that there is brain activity, but it deadens your consciousness to the point where you're not thinking, you're not feeling, you're not dreaming, you're doing nothing. And so from the medical doctors, and in fact my doctor that I talked to especially, you shouldn't be able to hallucinate under anesthesia. You shouldn't be able to dream under anesthesia. That just doesn't happen. That's the whole point of anesthesia. So the explanation has to come from somewhere else as to how you can remember any of this stuff.
Well, let's pick it up at the other side of the break, right from there, because it's an important topic. You're listening to Spaced Out Radio. I am Dave Scott. Our guest tonight, Nancy Rynes, talking near-death experiences. We continue right after this. Stay tuned.
You're listening to Spaced Out Radio Live with Dave Scott on the Deep Talk Radio Network.
Heading to Vancouver and looking for a night on the town? The Moose Vancouver is the bar that never stops rocking until 2 a.m. every night. The Moose has great food with everything on the menu from $6.95 to $8.95. Fantastic, vibrant staff and rock and roll that will bring you back to when the music was real, the hair was long, and the guitars were rocking. Get your party on at the Moose Vancouver, the official party bar of Spaced Out Radio.
Visit purpleplates.com today. For over 40 years, the Purple Energy Plates have been delivering amazing results for their many customers. Inspired by the great genius Nikola Tesla, the harmony, healing, and energetic effects of the plates have proven over and over to be beneficial and often miraculous to thousands of customers. Check their site for daily specials and choose from their many energy products. You won't be sorry. Visit them today at purpleplates.com.
Coming soon to our website, spacedoutradio.com, is the SOR Space Travelers Club. For just $5 a month, you can get into a private area on our site where you can hang with other listeners in our chat room, post in our forum, and check out a bunch of exclusive content and store that won't be found anywhere else, including a nightly after-show party with Dave. It's going to be the best $5 a month you're going to spend. The SOR Space Travelers, only at spacedoutradio.com. Did you know Spaced Out Radio runs 7 days a week? Hi there, this is Tessa Nicole Thomas, and I'm here to take you on a paranormal journey each Saturday and Sunday night. Why change the station when you have it all right here? Together, we'll hang out and share some strange and scary stories. And don't forget, we have Psychic Sundays as well, so come tune in Spaced Out Weekend. We get going at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern, only at spacedoutradio.com, where we own the night.
You know, it's hard being the bad man of ufology, but that's just the way that I like it. This is Chris George Zuger, and I'll be hanging out with Dave Scott and SOR scientist Chris Cogswell for Reality Paranormal, the second Wednesday of every month. And our job is to break it down and come to conclusions as to what is really going on in the supernatural world. I'd love for you to join us right here on Spaced Out Radio.
You hear footsteps in the empty room above you. A rocking chair begins rocking by itself. Don't be afraid of the things that go bump in the night. Reach for Spirit Storybox, the iPhone app the Huffington Post UK called the only ghost hunting app you will ever need. Spirit Storybox. The spirits are telling their stories. Are you listening?
Looking for a place to advertise at a very reasonable cost? Look no further than Spaced Out Radio. SpacedOutRadio.com has an advertising tab that you can click to check out our daily, weekly, and monthly packages to play on the radio, or our website including social media. From commercial spots to banners, we have it all. Check out our competitive pricing today.
Hi there, this is Geraldine Orozco from San Francisco's Bay Area Meditation. I invite you to join me the first Tuesday of every month with Dave Scott for Spaced Out Radio's The Spiritual You. In this fast-paced world we live in, it's time for you to take some time for you. We'll cover every possible subject from powerful meditation to healing techniques to your own intuition and spirituality. So come join us for The Spiritual You.
Are you tired of being blocked, shadow banned, or placed in jail for simply posting your thoughts on social media? Social Media Freedom can take care of that for you. Social Media Freedom is the newest and one of the best free new apps that allows you the freedom to post what you want, when you want. It takes seconds to download from your app store. Come join the tribe at Social Media Freedom. It's time to set yourself free.
So, you love talk radio? Then you'll love TalkStreamLive.com. TalkStream Live is always on, 24/7, with the best streaming talk shows. Find your favorite talkers and discover some new ones. It's free, readily available online or on mobile with any smartphone or tablet. Finding your favorite talk shows all in one place has gotten a whole lot easier. Just go to TalkStreamLive.com. Be sure to download the free apps from Google Play or the iTunes App Store.
We're bringing scientific thought to the paranormal. Hi there, this is Spaced Out Radio scientist Chris Cogswell. Join me, Chris Zuger, and Dave Scott the second Wednesday of every month, where we break down the who from the woo when it comes to everything paranormal. We'll investigate and try to bring sensible answers to those straight and sometimes outlandish questions people have. Hey, not everything has an answer, but we'll do our best. Listen in to Reality Paranormal only on Spaced Out Radio.
Are you intrigued by Paranormal Talk Radio? You'll love the new Paranormal Radio app from TalkStream Live. You'll find a great selection of talk shows covering UFOs, ghosts, strange phenomena, and much more. Download the Paranormal Radio app now and start listening to the very best in paranormal talk entertainment, including the network you're listening to right now, the Paranormal Radio app, free in Google Play and the iOS App Store.
A timepiece is a reflection of who you are, and what better way to show off the real you than with an Escape watch? Escape is a lifestyle brand accessorizing your days and nights. Choose to escape and create the life of discovery that you deserve. Dream, play, unite with your own personalized Escape watch. head to escapewatches.com. There is no time like the present to enjoy your escape. Use promo code SMF2017 for your 20% discount today.
Hello, this is your guitar man, Ron Bumblefoot Thaw, and I have to tell you, I love the response I get for Little Brother is Watching from Spaced Out Radio fans. It's amazing how music can inspire and make people think deeper about what's going on in the supernatural world. You can head over to my website, bumblefoot.com, to check out my music, my guitar workshops, my touring, even check out some of the hot sauces that I'm working on. And make sure you keep on listening, because with Spaced Out Radio, you know Little Brother is watching.
Welcome back to the second half of Spaced Out Radio tonight. I am your host, Dave Scott. Great to have you with us, sitting in the captain's chair of SOR headquarters, broadcasting to you live tonight, wherever you may be across this beautiful planet. Tonight, we are talking the near-death experience with author Nancy Rynes, and we will get to her book in just a little bit, but Nancy's website is nancyrynes.com, Rynes spelled R-Y-N-E-S, if you want to check it out. Her book, Awakenings from Light, highly suggest you go check that out as well. Nancy, thank you so much for being on Spaced Out Radio tonight. Right before the break, I had asked you a pretty pertinent question in regards to the anesthesia that they had given you during your surgeries, and whether or not the effects from that could have caused the brain to malfunction in a way to give you some sort of sense that you were having a near-death experience. But you were explaining that that just isn't possible with anesthesia. Would you like to continue?
Yeah, and you have to remember, I am not a medical doctor here, so this is coming at you from my discussions with medical doctors. So it isn't possible. I mean, part of the whole point of having anesthesia is to completely deaden your consciousness. It doesn't obviously deaden your brain, but it does deaden your sense of consciousness, or at least that's what they're supposed to do. Now, there are a couple other things that I haven't alluded to yet, which or haven't talked about yet, which will kind of I think break this out of the realm of anesthesia. So one of the things that I was told during my NDE, and granted now my NDE was in 2014. Keep in mind that I know a lot of your listeners are probably in Canada, but the last U.S. presidential election was in 2016. And so this was about 2 years before the election. So I was told that a specific person would win the presidency. And this was during my NDE, so this is 2 years before the election. And I came away thinking that's absolutely crazy. There is no way in the world that Donald Trump is ever going to be the president of this United States. Not going to happen. So that was in 2014, January of 2014. And about, I think it was 3 or 4 months later, he announced his candidacy, which totally shocked me. I had no idea the man was even, considering running. But I knew immediately that he would win, and because that's what I was told during my NDE. So a lot of people that have these experiences also have visions of the future that do come true, and that was one of them for me, where I got to see who was going to win the presidential election. It totally blew my socks off that actually came to pass. Some other people who have had verified NDEs, and what I mean by verified is there are now physicians, hospitals, surgical teams that kind of test it out. So in fact, there's a hospital here in the Seattle area that places certain objects in certain locations on in certain areas, like on top of the roof of the building, or in certain shelving within an operating room, or different medical areas of the hospital, where only basically what their thought is that we're going to put certain objects here, or certain symbols on, like they'll usually print out a symbol on a piece of paper and place it like on top of a cabinet that patients can't see. So they're trying to test out whether patients like me who say they've had an NDE, if they've had an NDE where like they float up near the top of the room, which a lot of people report, can they see these different objects that are sitting up on top of the shelves that they shouldn't be able to see if they're being worked on, down on the table. And this actually has been reported to have happened. And I've spoken with several of these physicians who have seen it happen, and also patients who have been the patients who've experienced it. And it is amazing when this happens. Some of these patients who leave their bodies, let's say during surgery, or one of them left that I've spoken to, one of them left during I think he was having a heart attack, and effectively his consciousness left his body and was roaming the halls, went, I think it was 2 or 3 rooms down he was in the ER, and went down, 2 or 3 rooms, was listening in to the conversation of a physician, a very specific physician, and a nurse. And then when he was revived and woke up, and he saw that physician the next day, and he recounted to the physician exactly what he had heard the doc and the nurse talking about, totally blew the socks off that doctor. And apparently the doctor ever since then has been kind of trying to investigate these a little bit more within his own practice. Not that he's going to go public with his research, but just for his own interest and his own edification. He's trying to figure out a little bit more about this just because of that one incident. So when we get verifications like this, where people experience things they should not be able to experience, where they see objects sitting in certain parts of the hospital that they should not be able to experience when they're clinically dead, that tells us that all is not as we think it is with consciousness, or at least as we thought we were taught. That consciousness can and does survive quite well without the brain, that consciousness and the brain are independent of each other in a way. So that what I mean by that is, consciousness uses the brain and body as a place of residence for a while, and then leaves, but is not produced by the brain and body. But it's very interesting when we start getting these verifications that come from doctors that are, they're doing these little mini scientific research projects on their own. They can't report on it because it's not double blind. They don't have a control. But it's fascinating to hear them talk about it. In fact, there's a new physician who has written a book about it. His name is Jeff O'Driscoll. I believe he lives in Provo, Utah. I have not actually talked to him extensively yet. I have met him. But he has written a book about his experiences in the ER with patients just like me, and some of the amazing stories and amazing verified things that have happened with his patients. And so I encourage people to look him up if they're interested in getting really the physician's view of things. Again, his name is Jeff O'Driscoll, and I believe his book came out last year. Can't remember the name of it though, but great. It's a great read, and he has some really great information too about the whole phenomena. So I encourage you to read about that.
I want to go back to Eugene here. He has another question
Sure.
for you. He's an experiencer as well, so that's why
Awesome.
he's going, with the questions here. Great guy. We've had him on as a guest. I highly respect Eugene Braxton is his name. Highly respect him and the knowledge that he has sought in this entire subject as well, tying it into consciousness, extraterrestrials, you name it. He's gone there and researched it. But his next question is about the description, if you could give one, about the physical area of the near-death experience life review.
Okay, so for my whole NDE, what the physical area looked like changed a lot depending on what I needed to learn. So for me, though, in general, the whole experience happened in what looked to me to be an outside kind of environment. So, and I've never been to Scotland, but from pictures I've seen since, it looks a lot like a very specific part of Scotland near Glencoe, which I didn't know that's what my version of heaven looked like, but hey, that's how it went. So a lot of what I saw through my entire experience looked like rolling hills, mountains. There were some trees. It was a very natural kind of environment, but I was definitely in the mountains. I guess that's my happy place. And the place that she brought me to do my life review was actually a pond, a small, dark-colored pond up in the mountains. And it, in human terms, I would say it was actually quite a small pond. It wasn't really all that big, maybe 50 meters across at the most. I don't even know if it was that big. But there were trees all around. And so, but the surface of the pond was almost so dark as to be a mirror, which I believe was very intentional that it looked that way. But that's what the life review looked like. So it wasn't like, in some people describe their life review as, like a movie that's projected on the air in front of them. For me, it was really projected on the surface of this pond. And it wasn't just one movie playing at one time. There were probably, 50 or even more little individual glimpses of my life that were happening all at the same time across the surface of this pond. So it was really, the funny thing is that it wasn't hard for me to keep track of. I could feel and experience all of them at the same time with no problem. But in hindsight, it was like, wow, I could actually experience 50 of these at the same time with no problem. But that's how it was for me. I don't know what your experience was like, but I think everybody has a slightly different experience of the life review if they have one. But mine was certainly a little bit weird. I've heard other people, though, since I've talked about mine, come forward and say, well, they've had they call it the sacred pond experience too. So I don't know if he's had that experience, but it's not unusual, I guess, to see your life reflected on the surface of a lake or a pond.
Interesting. That would be kind of eerie, to be honest with you. That would be very eerie.
It was weird.
Shar has a question for you. She is asking, and let me grab it here. Where'd it go now? Where did it go? There it is. She's asking you, do you believe consciousness is the same as soul or spirit?
I think that's exactly what it is from my perspective. Scientists like to call it consciousness. For me, I just, in my daily existence, I call it soul or higher self. But to me, it's the energy essence that we are. And it involves consciousness, but to me it involves more than that too. It involves memory. It involves connection to the greater being of the universe, which is interesting now that theoretical physicists are starting to come around and talk about that, which is very, very cool. I love reading about that and talking with them about it.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, let's move on. I got a bunch more questions from the audience
Sure.
here that will
Awesome.
take us probably till the top of the hour here.
Love it.
And Lisa is asking, could you please explain the white lights?
The white lights.
People always seem to say there's white lights around.
Oh, see, I didn't experience that directly myself, but that is a common trait for people going through a near-death experience. In fact, it's so common that it has kind of become one of the hallmarks of a near-death experience. And I don't know that there's a really great explanation for it yet. What I personally think that we're seeing is the movement of the soul or the consciousness from the physical energy realms, which are this is fairly low energy, to the higher realms of a more energetic dimension, or if you want to call it dimension or plane of existence. And part of that is a change in energy level. It's a completely different change in energy level. So I believe that we're moving from the physical, where we only can see certain levels of energy. Our eyes really can't take in much beyond a very narrow bit of wavelength. But as we transition out of the physical, we're being bombarded by a higher amount of energy, a lot more energy, and at a lot more wavelengths than we're able to perceive as humans. And so I believe at first, this is my personal belief, we're going to have to do some research on this, but we're being bombarded by so much high energy wavelengths that we perceive it in that early stages after death as just bright white, because that's all we can conceptualize at that point. As I've done some more looking into this, as the soul kind of gets used to being dead, I hate to put it that way, but really as the soul moves away from the physical life, you're also moving up, or you're getting a little bit more energetic. You're moving more fully into that spiritual dimension. And I believe it really truly is a different dimension. You're getting more and more fully into that dimension. Then you're able to perceive more in that dimension. So there's none of that struggle between the physical human life and this spiritual dimension that you're moving into. Then you're able to perceive the greater wavelengths. And so when I was in my during my NDE, I didn't perceive that white light. What I perceived was multiple levels of energy, like brilliant, different scintillating layers of energy that were underneath of everything. And so like each object would have, 5 to 7 different layers of energy. And it was all sparkly and interconnected with each other. So there's a lot of depth to it was like being able to see further into the electromagnetic spectrum than we're able to see as humans. And I was able to see the energy in the air around me. But the longer you're in that soul state, the more you're able to perceive those. But for me, I believe that white light is really that transition phase, and that seems to be borne out by people's experiences.
A lot of people claim to go through a tunnel, yet there are other people who claim that the tunnel is completely imaginary. Where do you stand on this so-called tunnel that people allegedly go to get to that light?
Yeah, I didn't experience the tunnel either. And I think about the research shows that only about 40% of the people who have reported NDEs report a tunnel. I don't really know. I don't know what to say about it. I don't know that it needs to exist. Maybe it needs to exist for that person as a transition, like almost like a symbol of a transition. So the one thing that I will say though is that for the most part, people who are transitioning out of their body via death are given exactly what they need in order to make the transition. It may not be something necessarily that they want, but that symbol of the tunnel may, for that particular person, be the symbol of, okay, well, I'm going to move on to a new plane of existence. I think that's one that I think we need to research a little bit more, because there's a possibility they could also be touching on something else, and that may be the transition to a different dimension that they're actually physically, or they're able to perceive, that some of us other people can't perceive. So I don't know that I would diss it really, like some people do. They may actually be experiencing something quite real, but we don't really know quite what that is yet.
All right. We only got about 40 seconds left.
Okay.
Before we go to break here at the top of the hour, then we'll have you for another 30 minutes. While we're waiting, in about 30 seconds, let everybody know about your book, where they can find it.
All right. The book is called Awakenings from the Light, and it's available on my website, but you can also buy it internationally on Amazon.com or BarnesandNoble.com, and you can also order it from some of your local bookstores. I don't know if you can get it in Canada via your local bookstore, but you can definitely get it on Amazon and Barnes & Noble internationally. You can also get it as an Audible book and as Kindle as well, so it's available in different formats.
Well, considering 70% of our audience is in the United States, they could buy it there as well.
That's right.
That works. Works for all of us. Nancy Rynes, you hold on. We have Nancy for another 30 minutes here on Spaced Out Radio. I am your host, Dave Scott. We'll be back with the third and final hour of tonight's show right after this, so stay tuned.
Hang out with Spaced Out Radio, where we own the night. This is Carl. You can follow Dave on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, and during the show, use the hashtag Spaced Out Radio to chat with us live. On Instagram, at Dave Scott SOR. On Facebook, give our page a like, Spaced Out Radio Show. SOR archives are free on YouTube at Spaced Out Radio. Come join us, or I will come join you. See you at your window.
At spacedoutradio.com, we have a little bit of everything for you to stay up late. So while you're there, check out our SOR Newswire, where our team brings you stories of the weird and strange to the WTF from around the globe. News on Bigfoot, UFOs, paranormal, Darwinian-type crime tales. It's the stories that the mainstream media usually won't touch. Well, we got them all on the SOR Newswire, only at spacedoutradio.com.
You're listening to Spaced Out Radio Live with Dave Scott on the Deep Talk Radio Network.
So, you love talk radio? Then you'll love TalkStreamLive.com. TalkStream Live is always on, 24/7, with the best streaming talk shows. Find your favorite talkers and discover some new ones. It's free, readily available online or on mobile with any smartphone or tablet. Finding your favorite talk shows all in one place has gotten a whole lot easier. Just go to TalkStreamLive.com. Be sure to download the free apps from Google Play or the iTunes App Store.
Looking for a place to advertise at a very reasonable cost? Look no further than Spaced Out Radio. SpacedOutRadio.com has an advertising tab that you can click to check out our daily, weekly, and monthly packages to play on the radio, or our website including social media. From commercial spots to banners, we have it all. Check out our competitive pricing today.
Hey, this is Canadian Paranormal Investigator Mike Moore. The third Wednesday of every month, I'll be teaming up with Dave Scott to bring you Ghosts of the Great White North. Each month, we will bring on guests from across Canada to discuss their ghostly encounters. Canada is a paranormal hotbed with stories you've never heard, so we're going to bring them to you. So get comfy on your Chesterfield, grab a donut, and join us, eh?
You know, it's hard being the bad man of ufology, but that's just the way that I like it. This is Chris George Zuger, and I'll be hanging out with Dave Scott and SOR scientist Chris Cogswell for Reality Paranormal, the second Wednesday of every month. And our job is to break it down and come to conclusions as to what is really going on in the supernatural world. I'd love for you to join us right here on Spaced Out Radio.
Visit purpleplates.com today. For over 40 years, the Purple Energy Plates have been delivering amazing results for their many customers. Inspired by the great genius Nikola Tesla, the harmony, healing, and energetic effects of the plates have proven over and over to be beneficial and often miraculous to thousands of customers. Check their site for daily specials and choose from their many energy products. You won't be sorry. Visit them today at purpleplates.com.
Do you want to know what's really going on in your world? Do you have questions about who you can trust in the mainstream media? Then look no further than the Rebel Planet. Come get the straight answers right here at spacedoutradio.com. Join me, Jamie Sexton, creator of Rebel Planet News, as I fill you in on the stories behind the stories. All you truth seekers, be sure to tune in to Rebel Planet on spacedoutradio.com the third Thursday of every month.
Get your horns up with me on Spaced Out Radio. This is Ron Bumblefoot Thal. Come tune in to SOR where you can hear me rock out with Little Brother is Watching, the official theme song of Spaced Out Radio. And then come on over to bumblefoot.com where you can find out about my tour schedule, my music, and everything else. Bumblefoot.com keeps you up to date on what I'm doing and the best way to stay in touch with my music and music camps. Sign up for my newsletter at bumblefoot.com and remember, Little Brother is Watching.
On the first Tuesday of every month, I encourage you to come along for a journey with me, Geraldine Orozco, on The Spiritual You. Together, we will take a look at how to access the highest expression of yourself and change your life. Consciousness, ET contact, health, and wellness, we can talk about it all. So come along for a spiritual ride with me, Geraldine Orozco, on The Spiritual You, only on Spaced Out Radio.
You hear footsteps in the empty room above you. A rocking chair begins rocking by itself. Don't be afraid of the things that go bump in the night. Reach for Spirit Storybox, the iPhone app the Huffington Post UK called the only ghost hunting app you will ever need. Spirit Storybox. The spirits are telling their stories. Are you listening?
The Call of the Wild is in Vancouver. The Moose Vancouver is one of the hottest bars and restaurants in the city. Open until 2 a.m. nightly, the Moose will rock you like a hurricane all night long. Great food with everything on the menu at $6.95 near the corner of Nelson and Granville. Get your horns up and come rock with us. The Moose Vancouver, the official rocking bar of Spaced Out Radio. The freedom to post what you want, when you want. That's the social media freedom you need. Social Media Freedom is the free app in your app store. No need to worry about going to jail or being shadow banned any longer. It's the freedom to say what you feel. The freedom to know Big Brother isn't watching. It's the way social media is supposed to be. Social Media Freedom. It's time to set yourself free. Download from your app store today.
Find your escape where time has no limits. It's about living today and cherishing the heritage of yesterday. A spirit of adventure for what is new, with the nostalgia of the past. Your timepiece is a reflection of who you are. Life surrounded by beauty from the world around us to the soul within. EscapeWatches.com. There is no time like the present to enjoy your escape. Use promo code SMF2017 for your 20% discount today.
We are getting ready to relaunch the SOR Space Travelers Club at spacedoutradio.com. For $5 a month, you can join us for a plethora of features found nowhere else. Hang out in a private chat room during the show and after party. You can check out some exclusive content and a store specifically for you, as well as a private listener forum where you can post your thoughts, stories, and pictures. The SOR Space Travelers Club, coming soon to spacedoutradio.com.
Would you like to connect with us? Head to spacedoutradio.com for all your latest show info. Now, back to Dave Scott and SOR.
Welcome back to the third and final hour of Spaced Out Radio. Tonight, I am your host, Dave Scott. Thank you so much for being with us. Tomorrow night on the show, it's the final Friday of the month, which means it is time for the SOR Paranormal Roundtable. I'm going to bring in some friends. We're going to talk about the paranormal month that was. So, January, almost in the books. Already in 2019. Hard to believe. But that's 9:06 Pacific, 12:06 a.m. Eastern at spacedoutradio.com. We say hello to everyone listening in on the SOR Radio Network, Deep Talk Radio, and Revolution Radio. Good to have you with us. And if you want to listen to our archives, they are free at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Just do old Davey the favor. Hit that subscribe button. Desert Clam has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Yogi Bogey Box. Yogi Bogey Box is your password. Make sure you use it wisely, Space Travelers, as the Clam sets the password each and every night right here on the mighty SOR. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you. You can rock out to Bumblefoot. Right now, go shopping at our Spaced Out Radio store, read up on the SOR Newswire, and so much more. For the final time tonight, we introduce our guest, Nancy Rynes. She is an author and researcher into the near-death experience. You can go to Amazon, any major bookstore in the United States, pick up her book called Awakenings from the Light. Highly suggest you do. Nancy's website is nancyrynes.com. Rynes spelled R-Y-N-E-S. Nancy, thank you so much for being with us. We got you for another 30 minutes here till the bottom of the hour. Great to have you.
Thanks so much. It's been fun.
It has been fun, and time is flying by with all of this stuff. All of it. It just amazes me sometimes. Getting back to the audience questions, Eugene is asking, when you had your experience, were you able to walk freely? And did you go to God, or did God or the higher source power, whatever you want to call it, come to you?
By walking freely, I don't know what he necessarily means by this, but I was actually kind of moving around and walking around. I was moving throughout of what I seemed to see as a vast landscape. So it wasn't like I was standing still in one place. My movements, though, were really mostly led by the spiritual teacher that I was with. So she kind of directed me to where she wanted to go, depending on what it was that she was going to teach. So, that could be, like the pond I described earlier. It could be a grassy meadow, or there were times when we were walking through forests that were more like bigger than the redwoods. It was incredible to see, trees like this. But of course they were spiritual trees. They weren't literal trees. So they could be any size, that could be dreamed up. But they were, it was incredible to see these different viewpoints. But I knew, the interesting thing was that I knew as I was walking through them that they weren't quite right. Like they weren't quite like they were on Earth. They weren't quite physical. And I, at one point, put my little scientist hat on and looked behind us as we were walking. I was trying to be very surreptitious about it, like just kind of like quickly look behind me, because I had a suspicion that it wasn't like physically real in the sense that, we are right now. It wasn't the same. It's a different dimension. And so what I saw behind me, it was interesting that off in the distance behind me, everything just kind of faded away into almost a mist, like it didn't exist anymore. And I asked about that, and my teacher said, well, this is your place. we've designed it to be comfortable for you, so that you're not here in fear, that you're in a place where you can more easily learn and feel as though you're at home, and aren't basically putting up a fight, that it's a familiar place where you feel comfortable enough to learn from. So that's what it was like for me. So I wasn't moving around. In hindsight, I wasn't moving around vast distances. It was probably a fairly small place, but I was moving around. And there were a couple of points, though, which I didn't really delve into in my book, which I'll kind of go into here, as long as we're talking about places. I was shown a couple of different places that didn't exist on this planet. And so I was shown 2 different civilizations in a different star system where beings lived. And I got to see certain cities there. They were incredibly gorgeous. One of them was, I call it the Blue Crystal City. Everything was underneath of a blue dome of some kind. I don't know what it was made of. At least that's what my perception of it was, is that the city was under a blue dome, and they did that so that it would minimize their impact on their environment. And on that same planet, there were incredible waterfalls that were so big that I couldn't wrap my brain around how big they were. They were so tall and so wide. So there were some really interesting places that I was shown. I still in hindsight not exactly sure why she showed me those locations on those other planets. I still haven't put that into context yet, but maybe for no other reason, just to know that they do exist. But very, very interesting to see cities off planet that do exist out there.
Have you had any other out-of-body experiences since then? Or has your psychic ability increased? Has your ability to communicate with spirits or ghosts increased? Because a lot of people who have these near-death experiences also claim afterwards that they are having some sort of entire shift in their own consciousness where they are now having these sixth sense type of abilities. Yeah, I will second that. It did happen. It has happened to me. So I did have another experience. There were some what I call minor out-of-body experiences, like where I would be sitting on my couch and there was one day I was just thinking about something weird that was going on in my life and how I was getting caught up in this stupid little, drama, human drama that, we often get caught up in. And I had an out-of-body experience as a result of that, because I think my soul wanted me to have a different perspective on that whole thing. It wasn't a full on, like, roving the universe type of out-of-body experience. That one happened to be just kind of local. And then about a year ago, actually it was a year ago this past Christmas, I had another, I just call it a mini NDE. I was in the hospital with pneumonia, and my right lung was basically just almost full of fluid, and I wasn't really breathing out of it. And my body started to shut down. I didn't realize how sick I was. I was really very ill. And my body started to shut down. I lost, as I'm laying there in the hospital in the ER, all of a sudden I couldn't see anymore. I started going blind. That started to freak me out. And then I couldn't hear anything. And I noticed that my sense of touch was going away. Like I couldn't feel anything anymore. And my breathing was getting really shallow. The heart rate monitor was starting to buzz.
because they had, when you go below a certain heart rate, the thing sets off. So it wasn't a full-on code quite yet, but it was starting to beep a warning. And I felt myself float out of my body. But it wasn't just the out-of-body experience. This was, I knew that this was a moment of death, that I actually could die at this point. And I floated up to about halfway point between where I was laying on the ER table and the ceiling. And I was just laying there, like, all the way out of my body, but part way to the ceiling. And there was a voice. It wasn't a voice of a human. It was a voice of a spiritual voice that said, your choice to stay or to go, which will it be? And in that moment, it was my choice. I knew that I had done whatever it was that I had originally set out to do when I came back, and now I did actually have the choice in that moment whether I could stay in my body or go on and really truly die. And two thoughts went through my mind and in my heart, actually. I knew that I wanted to see my daughter grow up, finish growing up and, finish high school and, become an adult. And then there was another project that I wanted to complete that I hadn't even started yet. And as soon as I contemplated those two things, I knew I wanted to stay, and I was just like slammed right back into my body so fast. It was startling, and immediately woke up, came out of whatever that was that I was in, and as sick as I was, and I was really ill with pneumonia. I mean, it was bad, obviously, to land me in the hospital. Within 24 hours, I was fine, absolutely fine. There was nothing in my lungs anymore. My fever had been 104 Fahrenheit, was down to normal again. I felt fine, absolutely fine within 24 hours. So, yeah, I have had another experience like that, but not. I haven't really felt the desire to do the out of body or astral travel like a lot of people dive into. As far as the like psychic stuff, I do have some additional abilities. I seem to have a lot of ability to deal with energy. And that's one of the things that I'm beginning to offer people now, is doing energy clearing and energy work on folks. But I have a lot of ability to work with energies. I'm able to sense, I guess you might call them ghosts or stuck spirits or something like that. I can sometimes hear them. I don't normally see. I'm not visual with that, which is really odd because I'm a visual artist as well as doing this other stuff. But I do hear a lot of that stuff. I'm also able to hear across time, if that makes sense to people. I'm able to get a sense of what was happening in a particular place or with a particular object, regardless of whatever human time has passed. And so there was an example where I went to San Antonio I think it was about 18 months or so after my experience, and probably made a mistake and went to the Alamo, which I didn't know. This was the first time this happened to me since my accident, and I didn't know what to expect. And there were some really interesting things that happened there where I was able to hear women screaming in the Alamo, which I didn't realize before that there had been women there. I only knew about the men. But I walked into the Alamo and was listening to not just the people who were there with me in physical form, but I could hear other things that were happening. And when I started hearing the women and kids scream in the back, I got out of there as fast as I could, but I didn't know what to make of it because I didn't know that there were women and kids there until I then went into the museum and found out that there actually were women and kids in the back room where I had heard them screaming, across time. I don't think it wasn't their ghost because they actually didn't die there. The women and kids were allowed to leave, but I think it was just hearing the energy of what happened there across time, which, my old self would have been totally freaked out by that, but because, that kind of stuff isn't supposed to happen. But it can and does. I've talked to a lot of other people that have similar experiences. And so a lot of these experiences, whether it's an NDE or a religious experience or a vision or something, it seems like they tweak us somehow, whether that means they raise our consciousness or they raise our level of ability to sense other states of being. I don't know exactly what happens, but there definitely is a trigger that happens for a lot of people when they have experiences like this, where they're able to see and sense things outside of what we consider physical reality.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Very, very, very interesting in regards to that. I want to continue with the audience question. Shar is asking, when you saw people on the other side, what did they look like?
Mostly just energy. Very tall. I mean, tall compared to me. I'm only 5'3", so I'm fairly short. So most beings and most people are taller than I am. So for me, I mean, most of them look like they were between 5.5, 6 feet, maybe 6.5 feet tall. Just oblong orbs of energy for the most part. And really the only one that really resolved into a more physical form was my main teacher, and she kind of was in between. So there was certainly some energy sense about her, but she had some of those physical characteristics as well.
Interesting. All right. We only got about 5.5 minutes left with you, and this show has flown on by. And in your research going forward with the near-death experience now, where do you want to see this research go? How do we expand on it?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, I've been talking with a few physicians. In fact, Sam Parnia is one of them, who's doing a lot of research into consciousness. I would like to see this go into there's two separate areas for me. One, certainly, let's verify that these things are actually happening, just so the scientific community can get on board. And I would like to, I don't know how we're going to be able to do this in a medical setting, but to do more of the verifiable research in, like I described before, where we have kind of like out-of-body tests set up around a hospital or medical center so that people can report what it is that they're seeing, and have those verified by the physicians there that, yes, in fact, we did place this, red tennis shoe on top of this particular cabinet in this room, and the only way that person could see it is if they were out of body. So things like that I would like to see more of, just to verify for the medical community that, yes, these are real. The other aspect that I think is being just kind of in the beginning stages is there are some neuroscientists who are looking at the very minute structures in the brain. And I'm sorry, I don't have these two researchers that I'm thinking of right on the tip of my tongue, but they're looking at the microstructures of the brain as a potential residence for consciousness. And they're coming about it from the standpoint of consciousness as basically a quantum field, which I think is it's a fascinating avenue of research to look into, because the more I look at it, the more we're looking at things like, what is quantum reality? Well, everything is quantum reality. Well, so what does that translate into in terms of our brain? And can quantum phenomena actually explain pretty much everything that we're talking about here. Is the soul a quantum being? Can we find out where that resides in the brain and what that looks like? Well, these researchers are looking at those minute structures in the brain as these structures are small enough. They're so tiny that they are influenced at the quantum level, that they are showing quantum effects because they're so small. And they're going forward with the hypothesis. It's not a theory yet, but they're coming at it from the hypothesis that this is these very tiny quantum, I think they call them microtubules, is where the consciousness, that quantum consciousness resides. Well, it's in the brain. And if they can get to that, I think that'll be a big breakthrough in terms of like marrying up physical science and spirituality and quantum science. So I think that's cool. But I'd like to see more research into those quantum fields as well, which is, the Akashic field, the Higgs field. What is the latest terminology for that? Oh boy, it's getting late. I'm totally blanking out.
Oh, that's all right. I wanted to ask you something because we only got about 2 minutes left, and one of the questions I want to ask you in regards to that, by just listening to you, it almost seems like we have to go back to that late 80s movies, the Flatliners, those type of experiments, and get real with this stuff, if you know what I'm saying, in regards to seeing whether or not some of these instances are true.
Yeah, I don't know how that we can do that ethically, but I think there are enough creative scientists out there to be able to come up with really good experiments if they're actually given the latitude to be able to do it. And I don't mean latitude in terms of experimenting on people. What I mean is latitude scientifically. So if we're giving them the backing to be able to research things that might seem a little bit weird, I think they can come up with some really good experiments in their field to be able to test all these things out and to feel them out. But yeah, I think we do have to go back and do some of that basic research. I think we've skipped over a lot of it.
No kidding. Nancy, we have only got you for about 35 more seconds. Do me a favor, tell us about your book, where we can get it, and on your website how people can get a hold of you.
All right, you can always get a hold of me at nancyrynes.com. That's NancyRynes.com. The book is called Awakenings from the Light. On the website, you can pick up the book, or you can look at, I've got a whole bunch of other freebies out there, a lot of other interviews. I've got some articles that I've written that you can get to from the website. So take a look at the freebie stuff on there. And also my upcoming events are also listed there as well. So take a peek if I'm going to be in your area. Stop on by. I'd love to see you.
Appreciate that, Nancy. Thank you so much for coming on Spaced Out Radio for the first time. We're going to have to do it again. You're just that awesome. Coming up next, we have Olaf Phillips and the SOR Newswire. We'll be back with more on Spaced Out Radio right after this.
To Spaced Out Radio Live with Dave Scott on the Deep Talk Radio Network.
Intrigued by Paranormal Talk Radio? You'll love the new Paranormal Radio app from TalkStream Live. You'll find a great selection of talk shows covering UFOs, ghosts, strange phenomena, and much more. Download the Paranormal Radio app now and start listening to the very best in paranormal talk entertainment, including the network you're listening to right now, the Paranormal Radio app, free in Google Play and the iOS App Store.
Looking for a place to advertise at a very reasonable cost? Look no further than Spaced Out Radio. SpacedOutRadio.com has an advertising tab that you can click to check out our daily, weekly, and monthly packages to play on the radio, or our website including social media. From commercial spots to banners, we have it all. Check out our competitive pricing today.
Did you know Spaced Out Radio runs 7 days a week? Hi there, this is Tessa Nicole Thomas, and I'm here to take you on a paranormal journey each Saturday and Sunday night. Why change the station when you have it all right here? Together, we'll hang out and share some strange and scary stories. And don't forget, we have Psychic Sundays as well, so come tune in Spaced Out Weekend. We get going at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern, only at spacedoutradio.com, where we own the night.
Heading to Vancouver and looking for a night on the town? The Moose Vancouver is the bar that never stops rocking until 2 a.m. every night. The Moose has great food with everything on the menu from $6.95 to $8.95. Fantastic, vibrant staff and rock and roll that will bring you back to when the music was real, the hair was long, and the guitars were rocking. Get your party on at the Moose Vancouver, the official party bar of Spaced Out Radio.
We're bringing scientific thought to the paranormal. Hi there, this is Spaced Out Radio scientist Chris Cogswell. Join me, Chris Zuger, and Dave Scott the second Wednesday of every month, where we break down the who from the woo when it comes to everything paranormal. We'll investigate and try to bring sensible answers to those straight and sometimes outlandish questions people have. Hey, not everything has an answer, but we'll do our best. Listen in to Reality Paranormal only on Spaced Out Radio.
So, you love talk radio? Then you'll love TalkStreamLive.com. TalkStream Live is always on, 24/7 with the best streaming talk shows. Find your favorite talkers and discover some new ones. It's free, readily available online or on mobile with any smartphone or tablet. Finding your favorite talk shows all in one place has gotten a whole lot easier. Just go to TalkStreamLive.com. Be sure to download the free apps from Google Play or the iTunes App Store.
Hello, this is your guitar man, Ron Bumblefoot Thal, and I have to tell you, I love the response I get for Little Brother is Watching from Spaced Out Radio fans. It's amazing how music can inspire and make people think deeper about what's going on in the supernatural world. You can head over to my website, bumblefoot.com, to check out my music, my guitar workshops, my touring, even check out some of the hot sauces that I'm working on. And make sure you keep on listening, because with Spaced Out Radio, you know Little Brother is watching.
Are you tired of being blocked, shadow banned, or placed in jail for simply posting your thoughts on social media? Social Media Freedom can take care of that for you. Social Media Freedom is the newest and one of the best free new apps that allows you the freedom to post what you want, when you want. It takes seconds to download from your app store. Come join the tribe at Social Media Freedom. It's time to set yourself free.
You hear footsteps in the empty room above you. A rocking chair begins rocking by itself. Don't be afraid of the things that go bump in the night. Reach for Spirit Storybox, the iPhone app the Huffington Post UK called the only ghost hunting app you will ever need. Spirit Storybox. The spirits are telling their stories. Are you listening?
Visit purpleplates.com today. For over 40 years, the Purple Energy Plates have been delivering amazing results for their many customers. Inspired by the great genius Nikola Tesla, the harmony, healing, and energetic effects of the plates have proven over and over to be beneficial and often miraculous to thousands of customers. Check their site for daily specials and choose from their many energy products. You won't be sorry. Visit them today at purpleplates.com.
A timepiece is a reflection of who you are, and what better way to show off the real you than with an Escape watch. Escape is a lifestyle brand accessorizing your days and nights. Choose to escape and create the life of discovery that you deserve. Dream, play, unite with your own personalized Escape watch. Head to escapewatches.com. There is no time like the present to enjoy your escape. Use promo code SMF2017 for your 20% discount today.
You know, it's hard being the bad man of ufology, but that's just the way that I like it. This is Chris George Zuger, and I'll be hanging out with Dave Scott and SOR scientist Chris Cogswell for Reality Paranormal, the second Wednesday of every month. And our job is to break it down and come to conclusions as to what is really going on in the supernatural world. I'd love for you to join us right here on Spaced Out Radio.
Hi there, this is Geraldine Orozco from San Francisco's Bay Area Meditation. I invite you to join me the first Tuesday of every month with Dave Scott for Spaced Out Radio's The Spiritual You. In this fast-paced world we live in, it's time for you to take some time for you. We'll cover every possible subject from powerful meditation to healing techniques to your own intuition and spirituality. So come join us for The Spiritual You.
Coming soon to our website, spacedoutradio.com, is the SOR Space Travelers Club. For just $5 a month, you can get into a private area on our site where you can hang with other listeners in our chat room, post in our forum, and check out a bunch of exclusive content and store that won't be found anywhere else, including a nightly after-show party with Dave. It's going to be the best $5 a month you're going to spend. The SOR Space Travelers, only at spacedoutradio.com.
We've rounded third. We're heading for home tonight on Spaced Out Radio. I am your host, Dave Scott. Good to have you with us. We now bring in the news, the SOR Newswire with the man, the myth, the paranoia legend, Mr. Olaf Phillips. The news is always changing, which is why we bring you the SOR Newswire to finish off every show where we get to the weird, the wacky, the WTF of the news of the day. And with that, we bring in Olaf Phillips. Olaf, thank you so much for coming on. How you doing, man?
Greetings and salutations.
Nice to see you.
Hi.
Nice to see you. What do you think, before we get going here, what do you think of the whole near-death experience that people claim to have?
You know, I think there's something to it. I mean, a person I know who worked in the medical field, you know, had an experience with somebody having one, and you know, the person is stone cold sober. You know, so it's you know, I really think there's something to it.
Do you think it's something that we need to be researching more, because there could be a little bit of a understanding, if we could put it that way, on how the soul and consciousness actually work?
Yeah, I mean, I think that any exploration into that would be beneficial. I mean, there's so many things that we don't understand, and you know, I think it's something we absolutely should explore further.
Me too. I'm going to stand by you on this one. What do you got for the news for us tonight, my friend?
Well, a woman marrying her duvet reveals lavish wedding ceremony. How's that for weird?
Hold on, she's marrying her blanket?
Yes. A woman is planning to marry her duvet as she claims that it's the most intimate and reliable relationship she's ever had. Pascal Selleck, 49, is organizing a lavish ceremony with the help of a wedding planner to celebrate her love for her bedding. The artist, who describes herself as rude, crude, spectacular exhibitionist, issued an open invitation to anyone wishing to celebrate with her. She said, "My duvet is the longest, strongest, most intimate, reliable relationship I've ever had. That's because it's always been there for me, and it gives me great hugs." It gets better. "I love my duvet so much, I would like to invite people to witness my union with the most constant and comforting thing or companion in my life. There will be music, a ceremony, laughs, and entertainment." Pascal says she will be wearing a nightgown dressing gown, and slippers for the big day, but she's keeping her husband-to-be's outfit a surprise. I mean, I just don't know where to go with that.
Well, the first place you have to go with anybody who wants to marry a duvet, their car, the ghost, is any wedding ceremony at that point needs to be held in a psychiatric facility. I'm sorry. I draw the line at this crap. Art or no art. That's not art. That's just being overly weird.
I hear you. But you wanted WTF.
I realize that. I appreciate that. I do appreciate some good WTF, which is what we bring you in here for. But nonetheless, who the hell marries their blanket? Seriously. Like, I have a duvet. It keeps me nice and warm at night. I enjoy the feeling of it when it's very warm in the winter and cooler in the summer. I don't know how that works, but it works for me. But never in my life would I think, oh, yeah, this duvet and I, we're going to...
I don't have a duvet. Actually, I have a Star Wars comforter.
I could see that.
I have an honest-to-God Star Wars comforter.
You should get a Star Wars duvet, my friend. I'm serious. Duvets are great friends for the sleep. They really are. But I wouldn't want to marry one.
Why not? It's the most it's the best companion you've ever had. It's loyal. It's always there for you.
Well, I get that.
Why would you not want to marry a duvet? What are you thinking?
You're making me shake my head and think way too late tonight. Way too late. You've rattled me with this one. Rattled me. Who does that?
The next one will rattle you even more.
Let's move on. What other stupidity do you have for us tonight?
Yeah, hold on. Get prepared for this one. Porn star who wants world's biggest bottom sets up satanic cult. A porn star who wants the world's biggest bum has claimed that she has regular chats with the devil and has reportedly set up her satanic cult. Argentinian adult movie star Sabrina Sabrac started Sabrac Legion to teach others how to cast spells. According to reports, the cult offers interested people a chance to make pacts with the devil and Our Lady of Holy Death, as well as learn how to cast love charms and speak to the dead. The self-confessed goddess of death and a witch of Satan told local media that she has something inside her that told her to start a satanic church.
Well, isn't that just pleasant? Just following the calling.
The 42-year-old added, I was an atheist, but I started to do things with Our Lady of Holy Death, and it felt so good. I got into a cult and later had an idea for a satanic church. I then set up Sabrac Legion because voices told me to launch a black magic cult linked to Satanism and Saint Death. The porn star, who claims to one day have the world's biggest bum, said that she is able to see things of the supernatural realm and can communicate with far-off spirits. So porn stars starting death cults, satanic death cults.
Well, that's nice. That's very nice, and good honor for that. Good honor for that.
You can't make that up.
I mean, why wouldn't you want to start a satanic death cult? Let's just be honest here.
I'm not sure.
Who wouldn't want to do that?
I can't see how that would be just a super, super bad idea.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, I'm still eye-rolling. Yeah. What else you got for us?
Company selling boxes of used tissues for $80.
Hold on.
The company
used tissues?
Yeah.
Ew.
The company Vave claims that using a tissue that carries a human sneeze is safer than needles or pills, indicating exposure to the viruses on the skin tissue serve as an alternative to flu shots and similar vaccines. We're not about chemicals or prescription drugs here at Vave. The company's website states inviting customers to get sick on your terms. The company is unclear whether the tissues are artificially treated or coated with the waste materials from an actual human sneeze. Dr. William Schaffner, an infectious disease specialist and professor at Vanderbilt University School of Medicine, called the effectiveness of the scheme into question. This is potentially hazardous if it does work, and I don't think it does, Schaffner told Yahoo Lifestyle. There are over 200 common cold viruses out there. Suppose you get infected with one. You can still get infected again because there are other cold viruses out there. Schaffner said he finds it unlikely the viruses would survive the journey from the company to the customer's home. Save your $80, Schaffner said. The whole thing is a cockamamie idea.
Hold on, this thing is $80 for somebody's snot?
Yeah.
I'm in the wrong business. It's amazing what you can... you know what? It's amazing what you can charge as long as you have some sort of something certifiable, on top of it. Oh my gosh. It's terrible.
You ready for more?
Oh, absolutely.
Florida man accused of trying to escape from police on a kayak. Police say a man tried to escape arrest by fleeing in a kayak to an island near the Seminole boat ramp. Police say William DeBello, 31, got into an argument with another man near the Seminole boat ramp along Clearwater Harbor. During the argument, Diablo sprayed the man with pepper spray, officers say. Witnesses told police Diablo was getting irate over who owned two kayaks. Police said before officers arrived, Diablo fled on a kayak to a nearby island. Then when police arrived, the officer said he left the island in a separate kayak to avoid arrest. Diablo was arrested on a simple battery charge. So fleeing the police in a kayak.
You should always have a spare kayak around just in case. This proves that theory, my friend. This proves that theory. Although with the amount, you know what, with the amount of gators, barracuda, tiger sharks, hammerheads, great whites in the Florida water there, I don't think I would be going in a kayak. That just seems a little too dangerous for me. I'm just not that rebellious in life.
I hear you. That was definitely a WTF to me. I'm like, running away from the cops in a kayak, that just, I don't know, doesn't make any sense.
No, there's no sense there.
He's got to come back eventually. And then, you know, he switched kayaks on the island. Maybe he thought to himself, oh, well, I went out in an orange kayak. If I come back in a green kayak, they won't know it's me.
They'll never recognize him. They will never recognize him if he does that. Oh, unbelievable.
Confused and let him go.
You can't make this up. This is humanity, people. This is humanity today. My goodness. All right, I need some more. Give me another fix.
Florida man, 62, who claims he was William Shatner's love child, tries to take the actor's name despite having his $170 million lawsuit, which insisted they were related, thrown out. The 62-year-old Florida radio DJ claims he is William Shatner's son, is trying to take the actor's name despite having his story dismissed by a judge and consistently denied by Shatner. Peter Sloan claims Shatner had a one-night stand with his biological mother, the actress Kathy Burt, whose real name was Kathy McNeil, in 1956 when they worked together on the set of Forever Galatea. He was given up for adoption by her, found her years later when she told him it was either Shatner or a man called Chick, who was his father. For years, Sloan tried to claim that Shatner is his father, and the actor has rebuked him at every turn. The latest development in their long-running dispute is that Sloan is trying to adopt his name, and Shatner is trying to stop him. On January 14th, Sloan petitioned a court in Clearwater, Florida, where he lives, asking to change his name. He then received a cease and desist letter from Shatner's lawyer, but is determined to push on with his fight. They are trying to scare me. It won't work, he told the Tampa Bay Times. Sloan sued the actor in 2016, demanding the Hollywood legend submit a DNA test to confirm that he is the biological father. And in an amended complaint, Sloan accused Shatner of defamation and libel over public statements denying paternity. Court documents obtained by the Daily Mail reveal Shatner's motion to dismiss the suit was granted with prejudice on Friday. Since it has never been established that Shatner is plaintiff's biological father, the alleged defamatory statements he attributed to Shatner and his agents could not have been, as a matter of law, false when made, the court papers state. Sloan's initial complaint and amended complaint were also previously dismissed. Shatner, 87, has denied being Sloan's father on multiple occasions, including posts on his website, an interview at the Tampa Tribune, and in an interview on a radio station. In a statement to the paper, Shatner's publicist said Mr. Shatner has 3 lovely daughters and no son, while adding, this person has fraudulently portrayed himself as Mr. Shatner's son for years. When asked on air if he was the father of Sloan, Shatner replied, no, 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 according to court papers. The judge also dismissed the case, which was filed in Florida due to lack of jurisdiction. Shatner has no ties to the state and had claimed that he had never had sexual intercourse in Florida that produced the child. Sloan demanded $50 million for pain and suffering, $30 million for compensatory damages, and $90 million in punitive damages. He claims the actor admitted that he was his biological father in 1984 and has been denying it to avoid negative repercussions to his acting career. Sloan stated in his lawsuit that he met Shatner on the set of the TV series T.J. Hooker, where he initially admitted he was the plaintiff's father. Days later, Sloan said Shatner representatives called him denying paternity and the possibility of a DNA test.
I don't know whether to feel sorry for this guy or to call him nuts, because there are a lot of wingnuts out there. But I mean, there's also a lot of kids out there who are in this situation and they just want to know who their parents are. I mean, if you're Shatner, end it. Just get a DNA test.
Hey, see? DNA results, 99.9% conclusive. I don't know who you are.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Just get the DNA and you're done. Poof.
I hear you.
You know?
I like Shatner. I like Shatner, but it's like, dude, take the test.
Yeah, exactly.
Take the test, be done with it.
I don't get it. Let's get to the thought of the Dave on that note. Thought of the Dave happens every night at this time, where we ask a question on our Facebook and Twitter pages. And then we read your responses on the air because we love the audience participation around here. Today's Thought of the Dave is as follows. If you've had a near-death experience, what was it like for you? We got some good ones today. We're running out of time, so I'm going to have to whip through a number of these. Serena, I fell into an empty pool and knocked myself out. I didn't have an immediate memory of a near-death experience, but did make me completely change my life. Stuff started to change my life after I started having these strange dreams. I had this urge to leave the job I loved and move away to a completely different state. I felt called to Seattle. It wasn't until the last couple of years that my guides actually showed me what happened when I took that fall and why I made such a drastic change. Debbie, I remember nothing of mine, and it was more than a near-death experience. My heart stopped. Linda, I was being targeted for death by an evil entity outside and the conjured dark entity she placed in the house, trying to get me outside by my car. She had already hit me with the car door a week earlier. I was warned not to go outside. A spiritual friend intervened with others and removed her. Once she was gone, the conjured was removed too. It was actually behind me in the doorway as they were removing her. I don't know if that's a near-death experience or not, but we'll move on. Trixie, I died. I was hit with the H1N1 and my temperature skyrocketed to 109 plus degrees. The moment it happened, I was transported through a white tunnel with many black areas along the way. I arrived in a rather small white rectangular room, sitting there. The love and warmth was unbelievable. I heard my ex praying for me not to die, and that's when I was given the choice. Do I go back or do I stay? I went back, and when I did, I snapped awake, fever completely gone, and I had to throw out the mattress because it was soaked like me from all the sweating my body went through. My very first reaction was crying and longing to return to the love I felt from the other side. It was God's grace. That's when my true spiritual journey began, and I returned as a whole. And now I'm here with Spaced Out Radio. John, I'm not sure if it was technically a near-death experience, although I did meet God. What happened was I did the old pass-out thing while on ecstasy. What I saw while out was 3 glowing women smiling down on me. I take the one in the middle was God, and the other 2 were her right and left-hand angels. Let's see if we could sneak one more in here. Let's go to Donald. It's like a deep sleep. You can see yourself, and there's wind all around you, and you can't feel the wind or anything like light sound, but you're there. But when you're there, you have yourself the power to do anything you want, but you cannot talk to the living because you are dead. It's a whole new world. Eerie. Very eerie. And on that note, tell us about Paranoia Magazine, bud.
You need to check out the Paranoia podcast on iTunes. Do it now.
It's grand. It's grand.
It's rad.
I went with grand. And don't forget, you can also check out the SOR Newswire by going to our website, spacedoutradio.com, clicking on the News tab. Captain Shirk has you all ready to go for that. Big thank you to good friend Nancy Rynes for coming on tonight on Spaced Out Radio, talking about the near-death experience. What a great show we had with her. Thank you, Nancy. Tomorrow night on the show, it's the SOR Paranormal Roundtable. Olaf gets a night off to go to the Tiki Lounge. Well, we're out here playing radio, hanging on out. 9:06 Pacific, 12:06 a.m. at spacedoutradio.com. We got Mr. Ron Bumblefoot THAL rocking in the background with Little Brother is Watching. Bumblefoot is the official music of Spaced Out Radio, rocking us in and out of every single show. Get your horns up for the guitar god himself. Special thanks to all of you for listening in the chat rooms, taking part on Twitter at hashtag Spaced Out Radio. Thanks for a great night. Thanks for being here. Thanks for hanging out with me, because together, my friends, we own the night. Mr. Bumblefoot, we need a favor. We need you to take us home. Good night.